On October 20, 1939, the early phase of World War II was marked by both military consolidation and diplomatic maneuvering as Nazi Germany continued to press its advantage following the successful invasion of Poland. While active military engagements were relatively limited on this day, the focus shifted to Germany's preparations for future operations and the impact of the war on the global stage. With Germany solidifying its hold on occupied territories, the Allies and neutral nations braced for the next phase of the conflict. Military events, German mobilization and strategic movements. As of October 20th, the Wehrmacht, having successfully completed the Polish campaign, was redeploying its forces in preparation for a larger conflict in Western Europe. While no major battles took place on this specific day, the German military focused on reorganizing and preparing for the next phase of the war. The German High Command, under Hitler's leadership, began to lay the groundwork for Operation Yellow, Fall Gelb, which would see the invasion of France and the Low Countries in 1940. This involved a massive mobilization of troops and resources, with units being transferred from the Eastern Front, where they had been engaged in the occupation of Poland, to the Western Front along the border with France and Belgium. Additionally, the German Luftwaffe increased its reconnaissance missions over Britain and France, testing the Allied defenses and preparing for future air operations. These flights were designed to gather intelligence on enemy positions and strategic infrastructure, including airfields and industrial areas that would become targets in the anticipated bombing campaigns. Diplomatic and geopolitical developments. German influence in the Balkans. On the diplomatic front, Germany was actively seeking to expand its influence in Eastern Europe and the Balkans. October 20th saw increased diplomatic efforts to secure economic and military agreements with neutral nations like Romania and Hungary. These countries were strategically important to Germany's future plans, as their resources and geographic position would be crucial for sustaining the war effort. German Foreign Minister Joachim von Ribbentrop worked to solidify economic agreements, particularly with Romania, which had vast oil reserves vital for Germany's war machine. At the same time, the Soviet Union was continuing its consolidation of eastern Poland and preparing for future actions against Finland, which would later lead to the outbreak of the Winter War in November 1939. The uneasy alliance between Nazi Germany and the Soviet Union, formalized through the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact, was still holding, but tensions over the division of Eastern Europe were beginning to simmer beneath the surface. International reactions and media coverage. In Britain, newspapers continued to focus on the German occupation of Poland and the implications for the rest of Europe. The Times and the Daily Telegraph carried reports on Germany's military buildup along the Western Front, with growing concerns about an imminent invasion of France and Belgium. The British government, under Prime Minister Neville Chamberlain, was actively reinforcing the British Expeditionary Force, BEF, in France and preparing for a protracted conflict. The media also highlighted the increasing threat posed by the German U-boat campaign in the Atlantic, which was targeting British and Allied shipping. In the United States, the isolationist sentiment remained strong, but newspapers like the New York Times and the Washington Post reported on the growing tensions in Europe and the potential threat to American interests. There was a growing debate in the U.S. about whether the country could remain neutral in the face of Germany's aggressive expansion. The Neutrality Acts, which had been designed to keep the U.S. out of foreign conflicts, were under increasing scrutiny as Roosevelt's administration grappled with how to respond to the escalating war. Projections. The impact of October 20th on the future of the war. The events of October 20th, 1939, while relatively quiet in terms of direct military engagements, set the stage for major developments in the coming months. Germany's mobilization of troops to the Western Front and its diplomatic efforts to secure resources from neutral nations indicated that Hitler was preparing for a wider conflict that would soon engulf Western Europe. The reorganization of German forces following the Polish campaign demonstrated that Germany's military machine was not resting, but instead preparing for the next stage of its aggressive expansion. The diplomatic efforts in Eastern Europe and the Balkans highlighted the global nature of the conflict and the growing importance of securing economic and military alliances. For the Allies, the challenge was to strengthen their defenses and prepare for the coming German offensive, while for neutral nations, the pressure to align with either the Axis or the Allies was becoming increasingly difficult to resist.